He picked on the wrong girl. He thought picking on a black girl was just another day of fun, shoving her into lockers, smirking as she held back tears. No one ever stopped him. But today, the second he saw who was standing outside the school gates, waiting for him, his entire body froze. Her father wasn't just any man. He was the new chief in town. And this time, the bully wasn't walking away without consequences. Jasmine Wilson flinched as the hallway's fluorescent lights flickered above her. Not because of the harsh light, but because the flickering meant she had exactly 3 seconds before Tyler Harrison would accidentally bump into her between 3rd and 4th period. Like clockwork, his shoulder slammed into hers, sending her books scattering across the linoleum floor of Westridge High. "Watch where you're going, Wilson," Tyler sneered, his friends chuckling behind him as he kicked her history textbook farther down the hall. This wasn't just another day. This was the 3rd incident this week, each one escalating from the whispered slurs to this physical display of power. Jasmine had gotten used to the ritual. Pick up her books, hide the tears, pretend it didn't matter. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. "This town has always had 2 sets of rules, baby girl. Been that way since my mama was a child." Westridge was a small town with a long memory, the kind of place where certain families always ran things, where the high school's trophy case still prominently displayed photos from before integration, tucked behind newer achievements like protective talismans. As Jasmine knelt to gather her papers, she noticed Tyler's Letterman jacket disappearing around the corner, the red and gold a stark contrast against the faded blue lockers. The jacket his father had worn, and his father before that. 3 generations of Harrisons who learned they could do whatever they wanted without consequences. Something inside Jasmine shifted as she watched him walk away, laughing. The familiar burn of humiliation was replaced by something else, a cold certainty. Tyler didn't know that yesterday her father had officially started his job as Westridge's new police chief. After 15 years away, Marcus Wilson had returned home with his daughter, bringing with him 2 decades of experience from Chicago PD and a zero-tolerance policy for the kind of boys will be boys excuses that had protected Tyler his entire life. The bell rang, and students hurried to class. Nobody offered to help her up. Nobody ever did. But as Jasmine finally gathered her belongings, her phone vibrated with a text. "I'm picking you up today. Got something to talk about. Dad." Tyler Harrison had picked on the wrong girl for the last time, and he had no idea what was coming. The afternoon heat pressed down on Jasmine as she pushed through the school's double doors, scanning the parking lot for her father's unmarked police car. Instead, she spotted him leaning against the hood, not in uniform, but in a crisp button-down, his badge clipped to his belt, visible but not ostentatious. Students slowed as they passed, some nudging each other, others pulling out phones. The new chief was making waves already, the first black chief in Westridge history. "There's my girl," her father called, his smile fading as he noticed the tight set of her jaw. What happened? Before Jasmine could answer, Tyler burst through the doors behind her, laughing loudly with his friends. His laughter cut short when he collided with Jasmine's backpack. "Seriously?" "Twice in one day?" Tyler growled, then froze as he noticed Chief Wilson. "Dad, this is Tyler Harrison," Jasmine said, her voice steady for the first time in months. "He's been showing me around school." Marcus extended his hand. "Harrison? Judge Harrison's son?" Tyler nodded stiffly, unable to refuse the handshake without drawing attention. "Your father and I have a meeting tomorrow," Marcus said pleasantly, "looking forward to discussing some changes to how we handle juvenile cases in this town." Tyler's face drained of color as realization dawned. The new chief wasn't just any parent. He had actual power in Westridge, power that could affect his father, his family's standing, his future college recommendations. The next day, Tyler avoided Jasmine entirely. Victory should have felt sweet, but instead, it left a hollow ache. Protection shouldn't require a badge. Ms. Abernathy, Jasmine's English teacher and one of the few black faculty members, noticed the shift. After class, she kept Jasmine behind. "I see things have changed with the Harrison boy," she said quietly. "Your father's presence working miracles already." "Something like that," Jasmine admitted. "Be careful," Ms. Abernathy warned. "Sometimes fear just goes underground, and not everyone will appreciate your father shaking things up." That warning proved prophetic when Jasmine opened her locker the following morning to find her notebook soaked with water, a note scrawled inside. "Daddy can't protect you forever." The handwriting wasn't Tyler's. It belonged to Megan Pierce, Tyler's girlfriend and the student council president, whose mother sat on the school board. The realization hit Jasmine like a physical blow. This wasn't just about one bully. It was about a system that had protected certain people at the expense of others for generations. At lunch, Jasmine sat alone until a shy sophomore named Devon slid into the seat across from her. "I saw what they did to your locker," he said. "My brother had the same thing happen last year. He transferred schools after they slashed his tires." "My dad's the police chief," Jasmine responded. "I'm not going anywhere." Devon shook his head. "Then you'd better be ready. They're planning something for the pep rally Friday. I overheard them in the locker room." "What exactly?" "I don't know details. But whatever it is, Tyler's dad approved the budget for it. Something about school tradition." The warning settled like ice in Jasmine's stomach. Her father's position meant protection, but it also made her a target in a town where change was viewed as a threat. Friday's pep rally transformed the gymnasium into a sea of red and gold. The cheerleaders' routine had just ended when Principal Matthews took the microphone. "And now, a special Westridge tradition, the freshman court." Confused murmurs spread through the bleachers. Jasmine turned to Devon, who looked equally puzzled. "This isn't on the program," he whispered. 6 seniors, including Tyler and Megan, marched onto the court wearing mock royal regalia, plastic crowns adorned with the school colors. Behind them, 2 students carried a throne made from a decorated chair, while another carried a second crown on a pillow. "Each year," Principal Matthews continued, "our senior class selects one exceptional freshman to receive special recognition. This year's chosen freshman is Jasmine Wilson." Spotlights swung toward Jasmine as the crowd applauded uncertainly. Devon gripped her arm. "Don't go down there," he hissed. "This isn't real." But refusing meant showing fear, showing weakness. Jasmine stood, spine straight as a rod, and made her way down the bleachers. On the gym floor, Megan's smile was razor-sharp as she gestured toward the throne. The crowd fell silent as Jasmine approached, tension crackling in the air. Something wasn't right. The seniors exchanged glances, anticipation in their eyes. Ms. Abernathy appeared beside Principal Matthews, whispering urgently in his ear. He frowned, then nodded. "Actually," he said, clearing his throat, "we have a change of program. Let's move directly to the coach's announcements." "Wait!" Tyler interrupted, stepping forward. "This is tradition. You can't just cancel it because the new girl's daddy is chief." A murmur ran through the crowd. "I don't need special treatment," Jasmine said clearly, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent gym. She turned to face the student body rather than the seniors. "If there's a tradition, I'm happy to participate." She sat on the throne, bracing herself. Tyler approached with the crown, and as he placed it on her head, she felt something wet and sticky seep into her hair. The crowd gasped. Red paint, dripping down her face, staining her white blouse, a deliberate echo of the school colors. And something else. Feathers started floating down around her, apparently rigged above the throne. "All hail the new chief," Tyler announced with mock ceremony. The symbolism wasn't subtle. the headdress imagery, the public humiliation. It was designed to put her in her place, while maintaining just enough plausible deniability. Ms. Abernathy rushed forward with a towel as Principal Matthews frantically killed the microphone. But Jasmine stood before either reached her, paint streaking down her face like war paint, or tears, or both. "Is this your tradition?" she asked, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Really?" She looked directly at the phone cameras recording the scene. "Keep filming. This is Westridge High School, 2025, not 1960. This is what happens when your family doesn't fit someone's idea of who belongs in charge." To everyone's surprise, she didn't run. Instead, she walked, deliberately, unhurriedly, to Center Court. "My grandmother integrated this school," she said, addressing the now silent crowd. "She sat where they told her to sit, used the facilities they let her use, and graduated despite everything they did. She told me about traditions too, about bricks through windows and burning crosses." She turned to Tyler and his friends. This is amateur hour. If you're going to be racist, at least have the courage to own it instead of hiding behind tradition." Devon stood up in the bleachers, then another student, and another. Not many, but enough to show she wasn't alone. Principal Matthews looked horrified, aware of the social media disaster unfolding. Ms. Abernathy watched with a complex mixture of pride and sorrow. And from the back of the gymnasium, Chief Marcus Wilson observed it all, having arrived minutes earlier for what should have been a normal school event. His face betrayed no emotion, but his eyes never left his daughter as she stood, dripping red, refusing to be a victim in this carefully orchestrated scene. The gymnasium emptied in hushed clusters, phones buzzing as video spread across social media. Jasmine sat in the nurse's office, scrubbing paint from her arms, while her father spoke with Principal Matthews in low, measured tones through the half-open door. "Clear violation of anti-bullying policies," her father was saying, "and frankly, it borders on hate crime territory. Judge Harrison can call me all he wants, but this isn't going away." Ms. Abernathy entered with fresh clothes from Jasmine's gym locker. "I should have warned you more clearly," she said, sitting beside Jasmine. "They've done versions of this before, but never quite so." "Obvious," Jasmine supplied. "I was going to say desperate." Ms. Abernathy smiled grimly. "They're scared of what your father represents. Change doesn't come easily to Westridge." "It shouldn't require paint and public humiliation either," Jasmine replied. The door opened fully as Principal Matthews entered with her father. "Ms. Wilson, I want to express my deepest—" "Save it," Marcus interrupted. "Actions, not apologies. I want a full investigation, documentation of all participants, and appropriate consequences." "Of course, but Judge Harrison has already called, suggesting this was just a prank gone wrong." "Then I look forward to explaining the difference between a prank and targeted harassment at the next town council meeting," Marcus said, "with video evidence." After they left the school, Jasmine expected to go home, but her father drove toward the town square instead. "Where are we going?" "To see someone." Marcus parked outside a small law office with faded lettering, "Wilson and Associates." Inside, an elderly black woman looked up from her desk, eyes widening. "Grandma?" Jasmine said in surprise. Eleanor Wilson rose slowly, enveloping Jasmine in a hug that smelled of lavender and paper. "Your father called. Said it was time you knew some things." She led them to a back room filled with filing cabinets. Pulling out a heavy folder, she spread photos and newspaper clippings across the desk. "I wasn't just a student who integrated Westridge High," Eleanor explained. "I was the plaintiff in Wilson versus Westridge School Board. Your grandfather and I documented everything, every incident, every threat, every tradition they used to try driving us out." Jasmine stared at the photographs, students with signs, a burning effigy, her grandmother standing alone at a water fountain. "Judge Harrison's father was school board president then," Eleanor continued, He testified that segregation was the natural order. His son, Tyler's grandfather, was the one who organized most of the pranks. "Why are you showing me this now?" Jasmine asked. "Because you need to understand. What happened today isn't new. It's not about you personally. It's about power. And the fight isn't won in one generation." Marcus pulled out his phone, showing Jasmine the flood of responses to the videos. Many expressed shock and support, but others defended the tradition or minimized what happened. "Tomorrow you have a choice," Eleanor said. "You can transfer schools like they want. You can press charges, which is your right. Or I can stay and document everything," Jasmine finished, understanding dawning, "like you did." "Change is incremental," her grandmother agreed. "But it happens. When I attended Westridge High, there were 3 black students. Now there's a black police chief. And someday, perhaps a black principal or judge." 2 weeks later, Jasmine returned to school. Tyler and 4 other seniors had received suspensions, but were back now, subdued and avoiding her gaze. Megan had transferred to a private school. Principal Matthews had announced his early retirement. Devon had started a student coalition for diversity. It was small, just 7 students at their first meeting, but it was a start. The whispers hadn't stopped. The problem hadn't disappeared. But something fundamental had shifted. During lunch, Jasmine sat with Devon and their small group when Tyler approached their table. The cafeteria quieted, watching. "Can I talk to you?" he asked Jasmine stiffly. She considered him, not with forgiveness, but with clear-eyed assessment. "Not today," she answered. "Maybe someday, but you've got work to do first." He nodded once and walked away. Ms. Abernathy, passing by, paused to observe the exchange. "How does it feel?" she asked. "Being the one who gets to decide." Jasmine thought about her grandmother's case files, her father's quiet determination, the students watching this interaction. "Like responsibility," she answered. "Like the beginning of something, not the end." As the bell rang and students gathered their things, Jasmine remained seated for a moment, considering the question nobody had asked, but everyone was thinking, what does justice look like in a place with foundations built on injustice? Was it public shaming, legal consequences, systemic change? Perhaps it was all of these things, and perhaps it began with staying when they wanted you gone, speaking when they wanted you silent, and remembering when they hoped you'd forget.